Hi, my name's Travis. Today I'm basically just going to be reading a story to you. Pretty much just a journey of throughout my life and just a meaning behind why I created this page and what I hope to accomplish through it. So just sit tight and listen. So first, my parents got divorced when I was very young. I lived with my mom mostly growing up. I started playing football in the 4th grade. I played every other sport too, but this was the one I was most passionate about. Please excuse any jumping around throughout this story because I never actually told this story this much in depth, and it's pretty much just hard for me to write in general, so. I've probably lived in over 20 different places throughout my life, whether it was with my mom and her boyfriend, or at a friend's house, or at like a random family member's. I hated that things weren't stable throughout my life, and all my other friends' houses, they had a little bit more structure than me. One of the boyfriends that my mom had lived with us in like the 4th grade, and she was severely beat up by him, and she got brain damage from it. So if life wasn't already hard enough from our family as it was, this was a big turning point. My mom going in and out of the hospital was just becoming a regular thing at this point. She had blood clots, and she had a stroke from it. Things got pretty unstable, and by no means would I change the way that the story goes, because I am so happy to be the person that I am today. I know my mom tried her best, and I can't thank her enough for that. I just started staying at other friends' houses all the time, starting in about the 9th grade or so. I was blessed to have met so many great families. Even though I wasn't living the same life as many others, I was still so grateful to have clothes, food, and always had a place to stay. I guess you could say that it was just a small sample of my background. Now let's talk about football. In the 9th grade, I was so small compared to everyone else. The same goes for 10th grade too. I stopped playing basketball that year so I could focus mainly on weightlifting. I didn't get on the field during a game at all except for one time in my first 2 years of high school. I started working out and eating a whole lot my junior year. I was ready to go do my thing this year. First day of practice, broke my ribs, and I was out for the whole season until the last game of the year. I padded up against Chippewa Valley. I just remember crying on the sideline because a whole nother year went by of not getting on the field once. I walked up to my coach right after the game and I said this to him: "I will be your starting receiver next year." The very next day on a Saturday, I started my comeback. I was in the weight room every day doing something. There was nothing that could stop me. I was missing going to parties just so I could sacrifice and make this thing happen. When we did team workouts, I always made sure I was the hardest worker in the room. I was going to the gym either late at night or early mornings before school. Senior year came and I started every game that year. I knew I could do it. But there was something inside of me that wanted more. I decided after I started every game that year that I wanted to play at the next level. I wanted to play college football. I figured if I put my mind to it before, that I could do it again. I remember someone said to me in class, they were like, "Isn't football season over with? Why are you still going to after school workouts?" But there was no one that could tell me anything differently. I was so focused and so driven towards this that I already knew I could do it before I even did it. And then I was chasing a dream. I noticed people started treating me differently. This was no longer about me. I believed in myself at this point, but I began to want others to believe in themselves just as much as I had believed in myself. People respected the grind and started to see myself as a role model for those around me. I was full in love with the thought of encouraging others and wanting them to chase their dreams. I looked at life differently. I felt a purpose that was bigger than me. I was living with my mom again my senior year, and I had my own room for the first time in I don't know how long. I started to go to church because I realized how blessed my life really was. With the conditions that life gave me, I could have always had it way worse. High school ended, and I felt like I was the only one without a plan, but I felt that God had a plan if I kept believing in this dream. I wrote a set of goals down to chase every day, and I hung them up on my wall. The last goal at the list was to play college football. Then randomly one day, a I think it was like July, a college recruiting website got a hold of me, and they said that it's usually $100 a month to have a membership on their account, and they ended up just giving me it for free. And that I looked at that as like, that was God. My highlight tape my senior year didn't do the justice that I thought it did, so I decided to make my own route running video at the field and sent it out to some coaches on that recruiting website. A few schools responded, but 2 schools said they would offer me a scholarship. I got the offer in the mail a week later from a school in Kansas called Bethany College, but the other school that said they would give me an offer was Concordia in Michigan, so I wasn't trying to travel all the way to Kansas if I could just go an hour away from home. But I would have sacrificed whatever for the dream. I got an email saying Concordia would call me on Monday. The Saturday before that, I went to a party and missed church the next day. I always felt like whenever I would miss church on a Sunday that I would just feel like I was so off because like I had an opportunity to grow with God and I didn't purposely miss it, but like I definitely could have went home earlier that night instead of staying out. And then on Monday when I was supposed to get a call from Concordia, I didn't get it all week. Then the next Saturday, there was a huge party going on, and I decided I was going to stay home and go to bed early that night because I didn't want to miss church again. I went out to breakfast by myself the next morning, and someone ended up paying for my bill. And then I went to church, and the pastor said, "If anybody is supposed to go to college soon, could you just please stand up so we could pray for you?" And I stood up, and the whole church just began to pray for me. And then after that, like someone ended up coming up to me and just like handed me $20 and just said, good luck with your future. And then later that night, there was a female who hit me up and wanted me to come scoop her. And I went to my car, and I got in the driveway, and I turned the car on, and I thought about like how close I was to this dream that I was going after. And I just realized like, if I truly want this thing to happen, like I gotta sacrifice and I gotta show God how faithful I am. So I turned the car off and I told the girl, "I'm sorry, but I have to get right with the Lord." And then she responded and was like, "Oh, I understand." So it worked out. And after that, I went inside and went to bed. And I woke up on Monday at 9:30. And then at 9:32, I got the phone call from Concordia, and they said they were going to be sending me something in the mail soon. 2 weeks went by, and I still hadn't had anything from them. I ended up going to church on a Sunday, 2 weeks after they ended up calling me. And I went with some friends that I've never been to their church before, and then I just remember randomly the church was like, "Does anyone want to get baptized after this?" And like that was something that I always wanted to do, but just never really thought that much in depthly to. But like before college, like going away and doing something and being around something so different, like I figured like I want to make sure like I'm right with God when I go into this. And then I just felt this calling when they asked if anyone wanted to be baptized after the service. So I went up on the spot and I did it. And after that, I just felt a peace that I've never experienced before. It was a feeling I had never felt in my whole life. The next day I got a phone call from Bethany College, and they said they were starting their practices in 2 days and that they wanted to pick me up from the airport tomorrow. I was ready to do it, so I went on the internet and started looking up plane tickets. And as I was doing that, I heard a voice out of nowhere just say, "Go check the mail." So I went out to the mailbox, and right there was a scholarship from Concordia. And then the day after, it was just the day after I got baptized, so I definitely just thought that was just part of God's plan. And so I just packed all my stuff up, and I moved to Ann Arbor the next day. And I for so long, I just felt so doubted, and of course there was times when I even doubted myself, but I made it happen. I don't really know how to explain it anymore. It was just a commitment and finally making it come true. Everything just felt unreal. And then I checked it off my goal list that I had made, and everything was just filled. It was it was like I just set out to do something, and I finally got it done, and it was just the best feeling ever. And I wish I would have created more goals after that, because like, I don't know, I feel like after you accomplish something, like you should be ready to go after something else. You shouldn't just be content with just, like, yes, be happy for the time being, but like after you accomplish something, like you should be hungry for more. And then I went, and I just felt like this is right where God wanted me to be. Like I was just perfectly in His path, and everyone was just so proud of me, and so many people began to tell me how much I inspired them. People finally saw what I had seen in myself this whole time. Because I made it, those who were underrated felt like they had a chance. But now it's time to get to the part of the story that I never really told anybody. Every hero has his downfall. After about 2 months, I came home on the weekend. I was caught up in the hype. Everything was going good. Then I did something that would lead to a long downward spiral. Everyone was so happy to see me. I ended up smoking weed while I was at a party that weekend, something I struggled with in the 11th grade. It was like when I was faithful enough to God to not smoke weed, He would allow me to follow His path, and I would feel more aligned, and everything would just be so smooth. And I'm not saying that if you smoke weed, you're like a bad person, but I'm just saying that for me, like, in my relationship with God, like, I've learned to the point where if I want Him to work it to the most highest potential in my life, the way that He can, then it's just not for me. And then on Monday when I got back from a party over the weekend, I was in the weight room, and I just injured my shoulder right away. I was doing too much weight, and definitely I was just vulnerable. And I was barely able to practice after that for like 5 weeks. Then I finished out the seasons strong and worked hard. I was probably weighing 189 pounds at that time. When I first got to the school, I was trying to positively influence everybody, and I was really in love with the person I was becoming. When the season ended, I fell into my old ways again, smoking more weed. It was a problem once I started. It was something that would never leave me alone. Even when I said I was done, it would show up right in front of me for free. I began to fall away from God. Oh, and also, this is like a side note, right before I left for school, my friend, whose dad actually died of cancer, he gave me a necklace, a Christian necklace, that I wore all the time, just because like I wanted people to know God and just ask about it. But back to the story, I had fallen away from God. I still prayed every day, but there just wasn't that connection that there once was. Then a lady in the office of Concordia called me down to tell me that my loans were not covering my dorm and meal plan anymore. So after the semester, I left. When I got home, I started living with my dad. A couple weeks later, I totaled my car. I moved into my brother's house that was closer to all my friends. I got a job at a broken down factory and somehow found a ride to work every day, even though it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. Just ended up getting a ride every day. I don't really understand how it worked out so good. I owed $600 from the car accident, so I had no choice but to just start working every day and just getting this money. After I finally paid everything off, I got a job as a dishwasher. Someone ended up letting me borrow a bike that I would ride to work every morning. And then when I stayed at my brother's, he would have someone sleep on the couch sometimes, and I would have to sleep on the floor. Eventually, after just a couple months of just living at my brother's and just working every day, me and my brother stopped getting along for a little while, so I thought it was best for me to move out. I ended up moving into another friend's house. I got a new job at the gym down the road, and I was determined to try to play football again at a higher level. But once again, I had a problem with smoking weed all the time, and I would go to parties and I would tell people, "Don't tell anyone I'm doing this, please. Like, I don't want anyone to see me." I wasn't being real with myself or the people who looked up to me, and then it really got so bad that I started selling weed, and I don't know, it was just like an easy $100 a week. And I just basically saw myself becoming the furthest thing from the person that I wanted to be. I would go to church every week still, but things just weren't the same. I didn't even see anything wrong with what I was doing at the time. But as I got away from the situation, I understood. Like, just looking back at, like, I don't understand why I was that person. And God still continued to bless me with a great job, though, in the summer. I was at an all-time low. I even tried shrooms at one point. And never in my whole life would I've ever thought I would have done something like that, but just after smoking every day, I just stopped caring about a lot of things. And then throughout the summer, I just kept working every day, and I ended up saving enough money to buy a car again. Then one night I was so sick of smoking weed that I went to a room to be alone, and I prayed, and I said these words to God: God, please give me the strength to stop smoking, or if you physically have to do something to me, then so be it. 2 weeks later, I just got off work, and I was ready to go to a party with some friends, and I drank an energy drink, and then I smoked. And instantly my body began to fill with panic. I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't sleep much that night. Then for about a month after that, I always felt like there was something wrong with my heart. I was too scared to even work out or do anything that would increase my heart rate. And that's when the anxiety began. I was so anxious all the time. I started going to church 4 times a week. I needed God in my life more than ever. I now know He did it for a reason, because He knew I would start to have a real relationship with Him again. One morning after church, I was at my mom's house walking in, and right on the ground I'd picked up that Christian necklace that I had once given, or my friend had once given to me, and I lost right around the time when I fell away from God. So God just showed Himself to me right there, like, I'm following you again, God, and for you to show me that necklace, that's just you acknowledging me. And I remembered the opportunity I was given before to be a youth leader at the church, and I felt like it was time for me to follow God again, so that's what I went and did. I ended up moving again to another friend's house, and I finally had my own room for the first time since my senior year. I tried getting a job somewhere else, but my anxiety was so bad, I just let it consume me pretty much. I had to quit that job, and I had no idea what to do with myself. I had always been around my friends, and I would always do whatever that person who I was living with, because I was in and out of a friend's house. I would always just do what they were doing, and for the first time I just felt stuck. And I was weighing 155 pounds. I couldn't take it anymore, and I just was sick of looking at the person in the mirror who was just not who I was anymore. So I said, I don't care about this anxiety. I don't care about how scared and anxious I am. Like, I'm about to get back into the gym. And so I was so scared that something would happen to my heart, but I would push myself through these workouts knowing that there was nothing wrong and it was all mental. And it just became a normal thing. I was able to work out again, and I was grinding, and it felt so good. I was still so depressed, though. Something became wrong with my car, and I didn't know what to do anymore. I had no purpose. I would just wake up every day and just think about how much of a failure I was and how much of a burden I felt living under someone else's roof and not having a job and not doing anything. I began to think about what my reason for living anymore was. I just felt like I wanted to give up on life. And then I just thought, what was my why? Like, before I fell away from God, what was the reason I enjoyed life? What was my purpose? And I thought my why was being a role model for those around me and chasing my dream and just being a positive influence to those around me. And then I started remembering my why, and that I had a purpose, and that I couldn't give up, because if I gave up, then I could be missing out on becoming a blessing, or even becoming the person that I knew I was created to be. And I realized it was time for me to chase the dream again and inspire those around me in the process. And then God began to work in my life tremendously. One afternoon, I was called by a friend from church to go to lunch, and we just talked, and I just told him what has been going on in my life. And then he invited me to move in with three other guys from church along with him. And then I was offered a job, and I got a ride to work every day. And my anxiety was still bad, but I trusted that this was all part of God's plan, and I had nothing to worry about. And for the first time in I don't know how long, I finally had some structure in my life. And I just felt so blessed to just finally make it out of the storm. And I now know my purpose in this world, and that it is to be a light for those who can't see it for themselves. And I'm going to continue to chase this dream and follow God's path, and there's nothing that can stop me. And I just want to let you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you don't ever have to give up. As long as you think that you are capable of making it out, there is a way out. And so my biggest advice to you would be that in hard times, just remember your why, and that there's always a reason to keep going. And it's easier to keep going when you're thinking about someone other than yourself. So basically, just know that no matter how low you get at, there is a plan, and eventually, if you can stay strong enough through it, and you can keep going, that it'll all work out in the end. And I can promise you that, because I didn't think that there was going to be any possible way of making it out, but it did. And after the conclusion of everything, I just have a question for you, and that would be, what is your why?